Well, hello and welcome. I love connecting. I love speaking to people. I love conversations. I think we can learn so much from each other. And the lovely Karen here this morning, she is on one of our courses, 365 Days of Conscious Creation. And she just reached out to me and said, shall we have a conversation? And I thought, yeah, let's do it. That'll be really, really fun. And we jumped on this morning, we started speaking, and then we thought, hey, we're saying some amazing things here. Let's press record and see what comes out of this conversation. So, Karen, do you want to tell people a little bit about who you are? And let's see where we go this morning.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah. So my name is Karen Astill. I am a transformational life coach by profession. That's fairly recent. It was a case of I've worked all my life in jobs. I never had what I considered to be a career, just job after job after job. And I was getting to the point when I hit 50 that I thought, okay, I'm getting a bit bored now. I want to try something different. And I just thought, do I just go for another job, or do I do something that's for me, that's going to sustain me into retirement, both mentally and financially? And the time felt right to do something that was for me, and I didn't know what that looked like. And I looked at various different options, and then I had a conversation with a friend about life coaching because it had sort of passed across my consciousness. And she said, "Oh, I know a life coach. I'll put you in touch with him." So I had some sessions with him, and I thought, wow, this is something I could do.
Mm.
So I did my training. That was about 4 years ago that I started training. So I've been qualified about 3 years, and just gradually building up my business, initially on the side of another job, which I gave up September last year. So this is, yeah, been sort of 6, 7 months in properly in business. But through that and through being coached myself, I came across the three principles, and lots of different people fell into my orbit, and you were one of them. And yeah, so it's really been uh, the last. I'm 55 now. This sort of all kicked off around 50, 51. So the last 4 or 5 years has just been life changing, completely life altering. And to think that, we sort of have this perception that you hit 50 and it all starts going downhill, and the opposite has been true for me. So now it's just a case of, yeah, making connections. I love making connections, and we've spoken a few times, and yeah, it just felt right to reach out and say, let's have a conversation, let's record it and see where it goes.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So there were a couple of things in what you said, and there's something that I have really been seeing this whole. So the idea of finding out who we truly are. So our business, my business, is called Dare to Be You, and there's a reason for that, because I can see the problems in my life and the way I struggled in my life was definitely because I had this idea that I couldn't be, my who the things that were arising in me, the things I wanted to do, the things that looked like a good idea inside me felt like a really bad idea. For all sorts of reasons, the idea of just being trusting myself and being me felt like a bad idea because of fear, I guess, because of things I learned in the world. And as I got older, a little bit, like, I can hear that it's slightly different for you, but it sort of felt like the same thing. Actually, why can't I just be me and do something I love, rather than, like, traditions tell us that we go and get a job and it works. And there's nothing wrong with getting a job. I don't, nothing like that. But it is, I can hear in what you're saying. It's like, yeah, I feel that there's something more to me than this and something more I can do. And another thing, I had an amazing conversation. If you haven't seen this conversation, go and see it with Gabriella. I'm not even going to attempt to say her. What is she? Montanado, something. Anyway, and she's got an amazing name, but she says it on the thing. Go and check out that. And we were talking about this too, the fact that I certainly think that women, and as we get to sort of 50, I'm 61 now, but we're not finished. Like, I am miles from finished. There is so much life, and with the experience that we have had and what we have learned, there is so much we can give. So I am hugely interested in exploring that. What is that? I think there is we have something really beautiful to give.
Definitely, and I think it's a societal thing very much, and a cultural thing that we don't value our elders the way that some cultures do.
Mm,
Uh, the whole sort of crone wise woman thing, it seems very old fashioned, and a lot of crones wise women were persecuted as witches back in the day, and I think there's an inherent fear of that. But on the paradox with that is, I think when you hit 50, and whether it's something to do with like the physical changes that we go through at that time, the menopause and stuff, you just stop having the energy to give a shit. It's just
I
like
love it. I love it. Yeah.
I just don't have the energy to care about that anymore.
Mm,
And I certainly stopped caring quite so much about what people thought about me.
yeah.
I dieted from 15 to 50 probably, and at 50 I was like, I just can't anymore. I just
Mm,
can't anymore. Um, and that doesn't mean that I threw in the towel and gave up and let myself go in any way. In fact, quite the opposite. It was a case of, well, this is the body I've got. How can I learn to love that? And funnily enough, when you come from a place of love, it's much better to treat your body well, and to start doing the stuff that it likes, and start doing the stuff that's good for it. So that was a real change for me. But also, I'm incredibly fortunate that I found coaching, because through being coached myself, it forced me to not force me, but it made me look back on my life through a different lens. And the slightly negative feeling that I had about my working life, which was like, oh, you've never stuck at anything, you've bounced from job to job to job, you've never had a career, you're not good at anything, you're sort of jack of all trades, master of none thing, actually made me think, well, I have a massive amount of work experience and life experience across a lot of different industries. I've worked with many, many different people, lots of teams of women. And also, I've realized even more recently than that I have actually always followed my intuition. I've got to a point where I thought, this is not working for me anymore. And rather than stay in it and think, oh, well, it's a good pension and all that sort of stuff, I've gone, no, this is not for me. And I found something else, or something else has come along. Um,
mm,
and also, it's made me look at things differently in terms of my relationship. So I've been with my husband now 25 years. We've been married 23 this year, and it's one of my greatest success stories in my life, I would say. But it's the difference between that and the rest of my life is, in my relationship, I've always been absolutely 100% me. And that was what made the relationship work. It was the most equal relationship I've ever had. He's never tried to change me into somebody else. I can tell him anything, and we've always been quite protective of that, and we've worked at it. It's not all been it's plain sailing, but I've always been me in that. And I thought, well, actually, like you said, being me works in this
yes.
context.
Yes.
Where else can I
Yeah.
apply that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can really hear in those threads, in the different things that you're bringing in there. And this is what I'm really seeing more and more clearly is in those moments, and you might call it fear-based stuff, you might call it not being ourselves, you might call it not trusting your intuition, whatever it is. But any of those when we do that, when we are tempted to do that, we mess up. It doesn't work well. When we follow our intuition, when we follow love, because even when you say you dieted from 15 to 50, what I hear in that is there was some kind of, because I must be like this. It wasn't out of, oh, I love my body and I want to take care of it. It's like, my body's not good enough. It needs to be a certain way. And so I need to work at making it something that it isn't. And even not that it isn't, in as much, I guess we're seeing through the eyes of fear or judgment or shame, some kind of something like that, which we pick up somewhere, and then we think my body needs to be different. So we can't look at it through the eyes of love. And it's the same across the board, isn't it? It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the details of what you're talking about. As soon as we feel fear, guilt, or shame in some kind of way, then we think, oh, okay. And then that's when we, as a human, rather than our connection to the divine, our connection, whether you use the word intuition or God or our deeper self or our inner being, whatever, it's kind of like this. we have a connection to something greater than us that is guiding us. And when we follow that connection, when we be our true selves, things just work out. And I'm not saying, like you said, like with your relationship, I'm not saying that there are no hurdles along the path, nothing to overcome, but we're guided through those. And yet when we take this, when we had this idea, like your example of, right, I'm dieting for an IV, we're it, that's like on us. It's like, my body's not good enough, I'm going to take this. And I had my own, it was different things, it wasn't diets for me, but 100% I can hear you. My stuff was relationships. Mine was, oh yeah, this is on me, I have to make sure this person loves me because I'm not good enough in this way, so I can't be me, I have to be good enough for someone else to love me. So rather than changing my body in that sense, that wasn't, it was literally like, I can't be who I am because that's not good enough to love. And in a sense, you did it with your body. My body's not good enough to love as it is, so I'm going to change it through diet, whatever. But you can see the same, it's the same thing in different, coming out in different ways. And I guess what the 365 for me was pointing to, what, you know, the work that I'm doing now and what I'm hearing in the work that you're doing now is, well, what if we can actually trust our intuition and be ourselves? And I know, like, the 365 is just daily invitations to have a go at that. It's not even saying, oh, this is what you have to do. It's invitations to, well, try this on. Does this feel like you? Does this feel like, if you know, does this light up your intuition? So I'd love you to share your experience of that and what you're hearing in that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the 365 for me has been it has been life-changing, really. It's been, and the elements of it that I love are, first of all, it's a practice, it's a daily practice. I get up in the morning, my email comes through, I read it with my breakfast, and then when I've had my breakfast, I sit and journal on it. So it's a really good, journaling works very well for me because I love writing, I love language, and I find that stuff just comes through. And quite often I'm writing something and I'll go, oh, I didn't realize I thought that until I just saw it come out of my pen.
Yeah.
So that works very well for me. And you know, I've tried to have practices in the past, like meditation practices and stuff like that, and it's never quite fitted for me. It sort of, you know, it worked for a short period of time and then life gets in the way. It just never it felt like something I should do rather than something that really worked for me. So that element of the practice works really well for me. The other thing that has been mind blowing for me is the invitation to play. Because, you know, when I learned about coaching and was new in the business, it felt like there was a right and a wrong way to do things, and I was terrified of doing it wrong. So sometimes that would hold me back from doing anything. So the invitation to, well, let's just play with this, and it might work for you and it might not, has been, you know, started off in the 365 in terms of today's playtime is try being somebody different. You know, who would you need to do this? And that was really interesting for me to go, oh, okay, well, I can just play with it and I can just play with it for today. And it doesn't, you know, if it doesn't
Mm.
stick, great. And that has translated itself into the rest of my life. It's been, well, let's just play with this. And seems like a really good idea. Okay, let's play. Let's see what I can make out of that. Maybe it'll be an online program. Maybe it'll be a workshop. Maybe it'll be a YouTube channel, you know, and it is just playing. It's just taking the seriousness out of it, because life should be fun, you know. And I know it's not always, and things will always come and bite you in the bum when you're not expecting it. But if you can learn to play, um, then it makes it a lot more enjoyable, the journey. And the other thing it did for me is make me look at my power as a creator, or a co-creator, if you like. And I'd already sort of dabbled in this through being coached myself in terms of looking at my life as a creation. And there's a story that I tell quite a lot when I'm talking to people about this subject. A year or so ago, it was a beautiful summer's day. I was walking in the woods. I live in the north of Scotland, and that was a conscious decision to live here, which is, I'll come back to. Um, but it was a beautiful day. The birds were singing. My little dog was with me. I just messaged a friend to say, "Well, it's a really nice day. Let's go for a dip in the sea later." So I'd got that to look forward to. And the thought passed through my head of, "Oh my God, I'm so lucky to have this life." And I
Mm,
caught it, and I turned it around, and I was like, "No, this is not luck. This is a creation. You have created this life through a series of decisions made over many, many years."
mm,
And one of those decisions was to move to Scotland, which was, some people thought we were brave, some people thought we were mental. It was a case of what? We were living on the south coast of England. We used to come up to Scotland on holidays and always loved it and always said we'd really like to end up there one day. And circumstances just sort of, we looked at different ways of potentially making it happen. And we tried a couple of things that didn't work. And then my husband was offered voluntary redundancy. So we said, well, we've got nothing holding us down here anymore. We've got no kids. We've got no dependents. We could live anywhere. Let's go to Scotland. And as
mm,
soon as that decision was made, it was like the universe sort of said, oh, that's what you want. Oh, yeah, no, I can do that. Yeah, no problem. And things just fell into place. And again, it wasn't all smooth sailing. House moves never are. There was dealing with solicitors and stuff like that. But things just happened. Someone bought our house for the asking price, was happy to wait until we were ready to move. The house that we were looking at that was online for almost a year didn't sell during that time. So was still available when we came to look at it. And things just sort of went clink, 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 clink into place. And here we are. And nearly 11 years later, we're still here and still loving it and still having to pinch ourselves that this is where we live. So it is like, the biggest things that have happened to me in my life, this move, my relationship with my husband, they are conscious creations. They have required some input from me. They've not just happened to me. So to look at my whole life through that lens of creation has been, again, life changing, and it makes you think, oh, I've done that. Great. What else? And I sort of did that unconsciously without really realizing that's what I was doing. So if I can do that unconsciously, what can I do if I consciously try and create something? And again, and I think I was sort of almost there at that point, but the 365 then added that element of play. So in
mm,
terms of, oh, oh, I'm a creator. Oh, crikey, that's a bit of a responsibility. Okay, what can I create now? But it's got to work. So to throw in that element of play, let's just play at this, at creating something. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter. It's
mm.
it's throwing that element of play in, and that's shifted a lot for me.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. And it, I guess it is that the element of play for me, I can see it is get in the game, because one of the things, definitely when we're in a serious place and when we take things too seriously, and when we are in fear, when we think, oh, I can't be me, when we have an idea, like you talked about the idea of moving to Scotland, if we then go into fear, fear says, well, I can't, who am I, we haven't got enough money, we haven't got enough of this, there isn't enough of this won't work, whatever it is, whatever our particular fears. And for me, the idea of just playing is, well, why don't you just take the next small step? Because when you do anything that we create, anything that we do, it is a series of small steps. It's not, we don't go from naught to 60 in 10 seconds, and obviously some things come about much quicker than others, but very, very often a creation, like you said, when you looked at your life, you saw that was a culmination of years of many things, many small steps. And that, it's always like that. Creation, it doesn't happen in 1 second in that kind of way. And so to me, to just be like, okay, well, let's just, and in some sense for me it's like, well, let's just pretend we can do this then. And that's the element of play, because fear would say, oh, not you can't, whereas play will just say, well, what happens if we pretend we can? What will we do? And I really see, I was a sewing teacher for many, many years, and I would have people come to my sewing classes who were terrified of their sewing machine or whatever. I had sewing machines that they would use, and the sewing machines were often computerized, and they would literally just sat there and go, oh, I'm gonna break it, I can't touch it, I can't do it. And my thing would be, well, what if you can't break it and you just try? It doesn't matter, if you there is nothing. And definitely my thing would be, I have been sewing for so long, trust me, if it can snarl up, if it can, I've broken needles, I've done this, I've done that, I've done the other, I've done this. If the wrong thing can happen, I've done it. So there's nothing you can do that I haven't already done wrong. So just give it a go, give it a go. And once you try something, then exactly you get feedback with, yeah, actually, this isn't for me. I wouldn't do it that way. And you get feedback of, wow, this lights me up. This is me. I love it. And so to me, that is definitely the element of get in the game, do something, because you will get feedback then. And that is the whole, yeah, play at this for today, play at this. Because when we play at it, what we see is, yeah, I don't like that game. And that's true across the board, isn't it? Like whatever we do, I can see, I'm here got this bit of land and I'm building a house. And exactly like you, some people think I'm absolutely crazy. And I do sometimes too. But there is an element of, well, just take the next step and play. And it lights me up. And so, yeah, very
Yeah.
much that.
And I think the other element to it is we were saying before we hit record about timing. And I mean, yes, the move up to Scotland for us took seriously probably about a year,
Mm,
because of various timing factors. We had to wait for my husband's redundancy to come through, and we had to look for houses, we had to sell our house and all that sort of stuff. So it took time. And when you look back at creations, like I said, my relationship's 25 years old now. We're still working on it. It's still
mm,
a work in progress.
yeah.
And I think we get fed a couple of lies in life. One is that it has to be perfect, and two is that it has to be immediate. We're all sold this, a quick way to do this and a hack for that, and don't bother doing all that. That takes too long. Do this instead. And it's like, why? Because I remember when I first got my coaching qualification, and I was speaking to my coach, and I said, I know where I am now, and I know where I want to be, and I don't want to do this messy bit in the middle. But actually, the fun is in the messy bit in the middle. I'm still in the messy bit in the middle. I expect to always be in that messy bit in the middle because that's life.
Yeah.
And I think we're sold this image of perfection. It's the Instagram society. It's this perfect image, and we believe it and we buy into it, and then that's where partly where the fear comes
Yeah.
from is our perception of other people's perceptions of us, which sounds clunky to say. So to do it is not going to be simple. And this is what I come across a lot in my coaching is people are fearful of doing things because of what other people will think of them. When actually, and if I just say to them, well, what if that's none of your business? And it's like, what? The same as when you say to people, you realize your thoughts aren't always true. What? This is not something
Mm,
that we're taught. We're
yeah.
fed this diet of it's got to be perfect, it's got to be quick, and the world's a scary place, and we believe it and we swallow it, and we look at life through that lens. And when you change the lens, the view changes. And I've changed my lens, and that doesn't mean that a scary lens doesn't occasionally drop into place and I believe it for a little while.
Mm,
My life isn't all unicorns and rainbows. But I can see it now, and I can catch it quicker. And that's what I teach in my coaching is that um, noticing. I think it's Michael Neal says noticing is our superpower. As soon as you notice something, you can choose whether to believe it or not. You can choose to change it. You can choose to drop it. You can just notice it and go, "Oh, that's interesting." Where's that come from? And that's the difference. And again, that's where the play comes in. Like, oh, well, okay, well, what if I play with not being that? And
mm,
one of the 365 days that really was an eye opener for me was talking about play at being somebody else for the day. And the thing that I chose was, I have a bit of a history of coming from a lack and scarcity perspective, which I think again is a societal thing that's thrown at us. Um, and I thought, okay, well, just for today, I'm going to play at being somebody who doesn't worry about money. Now, it was a day where I didn't have to do anything in particular. I wasn't going shopping or anything like that. I was just out and about. And I thought, okay, just for today, I'm going to do it. And
mm,
it made such a difference to my day. So the next day I was like, okay, well, I'm going to play at it for another day.
yeah.
And you know, it is just that gradual, well, let's play it again for another day. Let's play it again for another. Let's see how long I can keep this going. And that doesn't mean that I don't slip back into it from time to time. It's not a once and done thing. It is a process and a
Mm.
practice. But just having someone say, well, why not just play it this for today? Oh, yes, okay, I can do that. You know, it makes it manageable.
Yeah, it's definitely manageable size things, isn't it? That and yeah, the one that it's not once and done. What I see about transformation, I think I wrote it in one of my daily inspirations either yesterday or it might have gone out this morning, I can't remember, but it is transformation is a lifestyle, not a once and done thing. And like you said, our superpower is noticing, and we fall out of noticing. Like it just it and then all of a sudden, for me, like you say, I just notice I've gone back into this fear, scarcity, lack. Oh gosh, I'm thinking there's not enough. And I think one of the biggest lies that human beings are fed is scarcity and lack, that there's not enough. And then what happens, what we have to do from that. And the idea in the play at something else is, so we are fed the lie of lack. You know, there is enough.
Mm,
We are connected and there is enough.
mm,
And as soon as we believe in scarcity, that there's not enough, we disconnect.
mm,
And the disconnection is what kills us. So it's a little bit like if you think of your body with all of the cells in it, every cell has a part to play and they are all connected. Like our body is one whole and every cell has a part to play. And a part of that is the connection to every other cell. No cell in our body is on its own, stands separate and on its own. And we are the same, like the body of oneness. We are a cell in that body. So the moment we believe in scarcity, then we've moved into fear, then we disconnect. It's like, well, because if you think of a cell in your body, oh, if there's not enough for me, well, I have to make sure that I'm all right then and don't worry about the other bits of the body. I'm not going to worry about that. But you can see the folly of that, because if I'm one cell in this body and I think, oh, I've got to self-protect and ignore all the other cells around me and keep myself safe, your life support system is the cells around you. You kill yourself if you separate. And it's the same on a bigger scale as human beings. And whether you look at this between a husband and wife, whether you look at it as a diet thing, whether you look at it as what I got into a mess with around relationships and people, it is fear, scarcity, separation, and we are slowly killing ourselves. And when we come back to love and connection, and for me, definitely in the writing of the 365, it's like I can tell myself, I've lived in fear of many things for my whole life, and I can kind of say, oh, there's no need to be scared of this, but I'm going, there's no need to be scared of it, there's no need to be scared of it, whilst I'm terrified. So definitely the invitations, well, why don't you pretend for today that you're not scared? And it almost bypasses that oh, it's like, oh, okay, well, I don't have to actually not be scared, and if I want to move back to scarcity and fear, I can, but I can just pretend like a child, like my 3-year-old granddaughter. I can pretend I'm a princess for the day. And what happens if I do it, and there's no harm in it and nothing. And it kind of, so for me, that's how the transformation comes about, because it's just a light-hearted, well, just play and see. And then, as I said, we get feedback then. It's like, wow, that felt really nice. When I played at being a princess for a day, that felt really nice. Shall I play at being a princess again tomorrow? And we can leave this lack and scarcity model behind more and more and more, and move into this, well, what if I am powerful? What if there is something? What if it is okay to be me? What if these things, that these ideas that drop into my mind, that, when I'm in kind of like maybe a bit of a meditative state, when I'm out walking and I had this brilliant idea for a program that could change people's lives, what if I stay with that and pretend that I can do that and play at that being amazing and wonderful and actually impacting people, rather than, as soon as I get to, get back home at my desk or something and then think, well, you're not good enough. Nobody's going to come on your program. Nobody, back to scarcity and lack and fear. And so don't even actually take actions on these beautiful ideas that, to me, our intuition, God, the universe, this great part of us puts into our mind. So for me, it is definitely transformation in that sense is a lifestyle. It is, yeah. Let's play at this again. Mm.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a few things coming up for me from what you said there. One is that the whole lack, scarcity, not enough thing, we absorb that into ourselves. So we translate it into, not only is there not enough, but we're not enough.
100%. You can't have, it's a
Which
two-sided coin, isn't
is
it?
very damaging, yeah. And yeah, I still have days like that. It's
Me too. Me too.
it's like you say, it's a constant process. And the other thing that was coming up for me there, one thing about the cells in our body and how we operate. I've just read a book actually called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton,
Mm.
the
Yeah.
cellular biologist, and he talks about the actual biological truth in that.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. But the other thing, and this is the other thing that the 365 has given me, is that connection and the inner wisdom and the God piece. And a year ago, before I started, I was very not triggered by, but anytime anybody mentioned God, I was like, oh, that's not for me. That's just, I'm not religious. That's not for me. And I would turn off from that. And yes, I sort of dabbled with the universe uh, and that side of things. And oh yes, that feels a little bit more comfortable. But it sort of felt a little bit, that's not me. Whereas what the 365 has given me is, again, an invitation to play with, well, what does work for you? What
Mm.
word works for you? What thought works for you? What belief works for you? And I have, if I say I found God, that sounds, that's not what I mean, but I found my
Yeah.
interpretation of it. And
Yeah.
the invitation to look at God as not being some dude on a cloud with a white beard, but as being in us and
Yeah.
us being part of a whole. That has been really powerful for me in terms of, oh, that's something to think about. That's something to look at, and I can play with that. And that has been, again, life changing for me, in that I now can feel that in me. So I can give it a name, and it doesn't matter what the word is. Um, but I can give it a name, and I can accept it as part of me, as part of who I am. And when I get this intuition, these ideas, that's God. When
Yes.
I get that
Yeah.
little whisper
Yeah.
saying, "What do you do this?" That's God. And also, when I need some comfort, and I find it in myself, that's God. It
Mm.
it's that whole, and you said about, when we get into fear and lack and scarcity, we separate ourselves from that. And yes, that still happens. And when I realize that's happening, I'm like, oh yeah, I've moved away from that. But it's okay, because it's still there. It doesn't
Yeah.
go away. I
No.
can turn my back on it for weeks, months, years. It
A
doesn't go
lifetime.
away.
No.
A lifetime.
No. Yeah.
Still there. And
Mm.
I can see, when I look back at my life through that lens, where it's appeared and where it's supported me and where it's gone, oh, you want that? Yeah, that's no problem. Here you go. And looking it through that life, oh yeah, it has always been there. It has
Mm.
always been there with me. And it still is. And if I choose to work with it, look what I can do. If I
Yeah.
choose to make it all about me and all on me, then yes, I can achieve some stuff, but it's hard work, and it hasn't got um that same feeling about it. It's like work. It's serious. It's, oh, I've got to do this. Whereas when it's a co-creation, it feels better. It flows. And if it doesn't work how I look, if it doesn't look how I thought it would, does it
Yeah.
matter? It might look different. It might look better. It might not work at all. But I can go, oh well, I give it a try. It's fine. It's okay, because there'll be other ideas.
Mm.
So again, that is what the 365 has given me, in terms of a different way of looking at things, and that really nice feeling that I'm not alone in this. because I
Mm.
think we all can separate ourselves and feel alone. And I think I see a lot of people talking about not feeling like they belong. And yeah, I felt that certainly in my life. But we are all individuals. We are all
Yep.
unique.
Yep.
There is no, and we can fit with a group of people and interact with them, and it's great. And we have our friends and we have our relationships, but we are still individual, and we've got to learn to love ourselves and be comfortable and belong to ourselves before
Yes.
we can, belong to a tribe of other people.
Yeah.
Um, and
Absolutely.
yeah, it is. We are all cells just bumping up against one another.
Yeah. I think you really nailed it in a lot of what you said there. It is, um, I think most of us, it is it's a, what's the word? A trait of, not quite the right word, of the separation, the fear and the separation that we do, that we feel like we don't fit in. But like you say, the feeling of not fitting in, we then try to sort it out here in the world and try, and that was definitely, part of my fear was, oh, people won't accept me, people won't love me. And my solution to that was to not be me and to change myself. And what it is to see, no, it's not that people out here don't love you and accept you. It's that in here you have separated from God, and whatever word, like you say, it doesn't matter to, but that understanding of the greater part of who you are that stays in the formless, that is always guiding you. You have stopped following that guidance. You've stopped connecting with that. You've stopped connecting with yourself, who you are. And it is, so what we tend to do, whether it be a diet, whether it be not allowing ourselves to be ourselves, whichever way it is, whether it be a job, working, oh, if I'm successful in what the world considers to be successful, I have enough money, whatever it is, I have a big enough house, I have a good enough car, whatever it is, if we try to put it right there, the pain, that not belonging, will always be there. And we may have momentary, when we get something, we may have a moment of, wow, isn't this amazing and isn't this great? But that disconnection piece will just come back. It will just be there. And yet if we come in the other direction, which is everything that a spiritual journey is pointing towards, it works the other way, it works the other way. And it's like, yeah, if we first and foremost connect with ourselves, the feeling of belonging is, to me, like understanding, or finding my understanding of what God is. The two things that gave me was an understanding of who I am and an understanding of whose I am, who I belong to. And so that sense of belonging, when we know that we are a part of the energy that created all of this, that's whose I am. And like seeing that, the sense of belonging there. And exactly like you said, we are all unique aspects of that. There are no, when you think of your body, and I mean, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, I don't know, but when I listen to podcasts and listen to people, scientists and Dr. Joe Dispenza and people who do study these things and know about things, it collaborates, it kind of, it supports this idea. Yeah, there is no two cells in your body that are exactly the same, and there is no cell that is not needed. There's no, extra cells that we have that we don't need, and there's no two cells that are the same. And that's the same as us as human beings, which is why it is so important, because when we stop feeling like we belong, we think, like, part of me not being me was thinking, right, I need to find the person who's got this right and then become a clone of that person. I can't be me. And so, and whether that, however that comes out in us, whatever way we interpret that and do that, that's the whole thing about, yeah, we need to be a certain size, we need to wear the right clothes, we need to have our hair right, we need to be the right color, we need to be whatever it is. It's the same kind of thing as, I need to be a clone of someone else so that I can feel like I belong. But the whole point of who we are, and what I'm seeing, and what I would love to change and help, like when I think of my daughters and my granddaughters, like, I didn't realize that I was a unique aspect of the divine, and actually being that is my gift to the world. And it's taken me until I'm kind of in my 50s and 60s to even look in that direction, to even dare to look in that direction. So definitely me, like the work that you're doing, the coaching, the work that I do, it is about helping people see that earlier. You know, helping my granddaughter to be like, actually, do you know what? Right now you can be you. I can help her rather than feeding her the lie of lack, feed
Mm,
her the lie of you will always be enough. And the way that you see the world and how you show up in the world, even if it's different, and even if some people think you're crackers, and even because you can see when you look at different religions, when we look at the arguing and the fighting, and religion is such an example of this. It's like each religion thinks they have got it right and everyone needs to be the same as them. And it's the same basic mistake. It's like, no, if we could learn from each other and share the good bits and see that actually, you know, we need people who think in this way and we need people who think the polar opposite. We need people who think this way. But we can do it through love and connection rather than self-protection, fear, lack, killing each other. And whether
mm.
that's small scale or big scale, that's where we need to be headed.
Yeah, and the irony about what you said there about your granddaughter is when we're kids, we are like that naturally. You know, we
Yes.
know we're
I
just
can see that she's
we're
like that
just
already.
we're happy being where we'll walk around with a saucepan on our heads and not care what people think. You know, we're like that naturally, and that's what shows us that this lack and separation is a learned behavior.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you referred there to cells and being unique as well. And what I do sometimes with my clients, or what I've done, I did a workshop. I can't remember when it was last year. Um, Trying to encourage people to be their magnificent selves. I called it "We Are Magnificent" because we are. And I took them out into nature. We went for a nature walk, and I said, I really want you to look at nature. It's not perfect. This tree's got a big long bit coming out of it. That tree doesn't compare itself to that tree and find itself lacking. They've all got their part to play. It's an ecosystem, and we
Yeah.
are part of that. And I think that's, we are separating. The encouragement from society is to separate ourselves from each other, but also to separate ourselves from nature rather than being a part of it, because we're all part of the same ecosystem.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's really, I mean, I feel most me when I'm out in nature.
Mm.
That's when I get all my good ideas, and that's where I feel most comfortable, is out in nature, and because I feel a part of it. And when I'm in my house with walls and stuff, I don't feel quite, I feel a bit more disconnected from it. um, but yeah, I see and nature is sometimes cruel. It has it's not always pretty, and life isn't always pretty. And I think we try and insulate ourselves from that, and not go near the bad stuff, or just labeling it as bad and good, and rather than just part of nature, it is not helpful. And like you said earlier on, it's a case of, if we're not feeling how we want to feel, we look at the external. We try and fix something externally because it must be that. It can't possibly be me. And when we talk about, well, you need to look inside, it's an inside out thing. We think that means deep analysis and going through therapy and digging everything up from the past, and it doesn't have to. It's just like, okay, this is showing up for you in this particular area of your life. Where else is it showing up for you like that? Where in your life are you successful, and how can you apply that? And for me, one of the things that came out of coaching, being coached myself, was, okay, well, look at where in your life are things really going well. And for me, it was my relationship. Okay, why is that? Well, that's because I'm really open and honest, and I'm myself. I communicate well, and I accept that it's a work in progress. Okay, apply that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not about changing ourselves or working on ourselves, which sounds like hard work. It's just about looking at ourselves and, where do we do things really well? What are my strengths? And this is one of the questions I ask in my coaching, which generally stumps people. What do I actually want?
Yeah. I know.
I don't know. It's a blank canvas, and we're because, and I think particularly as women, we are conditioned to want certain things. We think we should want certain things, or we think that's all we can get.
Mm,
And we fit into boxes much more, I think, than men have to. So, you know, when I speak to women who have been mothers, you know, a good chunk of their life, and maybe the kids have left home or don't need them as much, okay, well, what do you want? Well, I can't remember. You know, I just can't remember. So it is about looking inside and thinking, okay, well, what used to light me up?
mm.
What really,
Who
you
am
know,
I?
when do I feel in flow? Who am I now? And redefining that. And the trick is we're allowed to do that. Um, and like with the 365, it's giving yourself permission to play with things. Well, go and play with that. Doesn't work, try something else. Go and play with that. Try that. Doesn't work, go and play with something else. It's try these things, play with it. It doesn't have to be all serious. You know, you don't have to pick something and stick with it. So yeah, I think that was a massive shift for me, and I know it is for the women that I speak to. Is, you know, what do you actually want?
Yeah.
Just go away and think about that for a bit.
I don't think we're ever taught. I know that, I mean, for me, the word that I use is God entity, but, and this is the uniqueness. I don't think we've ever asked ourselves the question in that sense, you know, who am I? And very often, as women, we get our identity from being a wife or being a mother or being something, and that's an external thing. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but it's not who we are. It's like there is something, there is a deeper truth about who we are and in
Mm,
our uniqueness. Like there is the oneness piece, and then there is something as an individual aspect of the divine. Who am I in that individual? You know, what is it? Who am I in that? What do I bring to the world? What I bring? And I think very often as women we have lost any connection and any idea of that because we have been wives and mothers and you know, and men too, but and we've worked at jobs and we've done things and we have got our identity or our sense of who we are from something external, if you like.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
then, and definitely for many women who have worked a job or have, you know, been a wife or a mother or those kinds of things, and then they get to a certain age and suddenly it's like I have no idea who I am because all I've got all of my sense of identity, all of my sense of who I am from this, and that's
Mm,
now changing
yeah.
and I don't know where I am.
Mm,
So for me, definitely this journey is, and the question I like to ask is, who does God say I am? Because that is before any of that. That is before that. And when we know that, that helps us know what is it we want. Because once we know who we are, then it makes what we want make sense in that, you know. And definitely for me, when I asked God, you know, who do you see me as? Who am I? And it took me quite a while to receive that and accept that and live into it because it felt too big and scary. And definitely the fear in me kind of said, no, you can't. But basically, what I got back when I asked that question was that I am the light, I am an interpreter, and I am the breaker of unhealthy cycles. And that's what I am beyond. It's that's not about what I do as a job. That's and so when we know who we are in that, whatever we do out in the world, if we come from a knowing of who we are on a deeper level, we stand in who we are. What we do then has much more of an impact and it feels light and fun and easy and guided and all of those things. But
Yeah.
yeah, you know.
And I think the other thing is, like you said, we consider who we are in relation to other people or in relation to things, or as you say, external things. When we look at who we are in ourselves, I don't think we have the language. And I don't think the language really, I mean, I love language and I love words, and I really feel that language is a creative tool. But sometimes the words aren't that important. Sometimes it is a feeling.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and we follow that feeling if we trust it. And that's a big thing, is getting people to trust that feeling, because a lot of people never have. um so that's a big part of it for me, and also accepting that who we are changes. It's not a static thing. It's not a, oh, okay, that's it. That's my role in life. Okay, that's it forever. It is an evolving thing. It's a changing thing. And this is when it comes back to, well, play with being this for today. And today it might feel great. Tomorrow might not feel so great, and I initially, when I came to coaching, when I started doing this work and looking in this direction, I got a bit frustrated that it'd taken me till I was in my 50s to find it. But also I thought, well, do you know what? If you'd have explained this to me 30 years ago, I might not have understood it. I might not have got it. It might not have fitted with where I was in my life. And that is that comes back to the looking at my life up to this point, and what was it giving me, what was it bringing me to. And as I said, I'd worked in various different industries with groups of people, and I'd learned a bit from everybody as I went along. I'd sort of absorbed it all like a sponge, and that made me who I am now and where I am now, and what I'm and that informs what I'm doing now. 10 years down the line, who knows? Who knows? And that's the exciting thing. And I think that's what the 365 has encouraged me to look at, is this is a constant work in progress. It's a constant evolution. And I'm in my 50s, mid 50s, and still excited for the future. And that is just a massive gift, to look at life through that, because I see people my age looking towards staring at retirement, and all right, they might be looking forward to it in terms of they don't have to work anymore and then go on a few more holidays. But other than that, what is there to look forward to? Whereas I'm looking forward to, what can I create next? What's next? What's going to drive consciousness next? And where will that take me? And I get a lot more, I trust things more, in terms of, if I see something or comment on, I mean, I think I met you through a Facebook group, and I saw one of your videos, and then there was comments, and there was a messaging, and then I signed up for the 365, and I did the soul contract course with you. But these people it's okay to go down a rabbit hole. It's okay to follow this nudge and see where it takes you. And it may take you somewhere brilliant. You may get to a bit of a dead end and think, well, okay, I'll just reverse out of this. But it's that excitement about, oh, where's this taking me? And to get up every morning and thinking, great, what am I going to create today, is just a massive shift. And it doesn't happen every morning. I don't bounce out of bed every morning going, woohoo, what am I going to create today? Sometimes it's, oh God, where am I? But more often than not, I'm excited about the day and excited to see where it will take me. And that has just been such a gift.
Well, I could carry on talking to you for hours and hours and hours, but I'm aware. So if people want to find out more about you and get in touch with you, where can they find you?
So I am on Facebook and LinkedIn. I did have a Facebook business account, but I got it hacked last year, so I had to start from scratch. So now I just have my account, which is Karen Astill. I am on LinkedIn under Karen Astill as well, and I have a website, which is karenastill.com. I also have a YouTube channel. You can look at me at Karen Astill Coaching on YouTube. And that's just, again, something I'm just playing with at the moment. It's not very high tech. It's just me recording from Zoom, my musings, and they're sort of 10-15 minute videos on what's coming up for me at the moment. But yeah, reach out. I'm always happy for a conversation like this. I'm happy to make connections. If it goes somewhere, great. If it doesn't matter. It's just reach out and we'll play.
Thank you. Thank you for a lovely conversation. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay.